What started off as a single image and a short paragraph, filling everyone's imaginations and even being turned into a successful movie. The Backrooms phenomena needs to be studied, so that I did. Having looked into liminal spaces before, and briefly covering the Backrooms, I now wanted to dip my feet a little deeper into the topic, as well as talk about the movie. Even though my last movie review on here was about a video game, I figured, hey, an internet phenomena / creepypasta turned into a movie is close enough. That and I still have a lot to say since my last video. So, get ready to cross dimensions and beat up some tired memes, because we are no-clipping into the Backrooms and reviewing the movie while we're there.
Come visit Captain Clark's Ottoman Empire, and the only thing you'll be wanting is more space to keep it all.
Say that again?
As of the release of this video, the Backrooms movie has been out for 2 months now, and I watched it just a month ago, but it's still fresh in my mind. And with the Everything Must Go extended edition, there is another reason to revisit this movie. For the few who may have clicked on this and have absolutely no idea what the Backrooms is, I will give an extremely short summary. Years ago, an image was posted online with a short story about accidentally ending up in this place, another dimension of endless hallways, being trapped here, and maybe not being fully alone. From there, many stories and interpretations have been made, one of them being turned into short story videos on YouTube, and then having his work adapted into a feature film. Produced by A24 and directed by the short story videos creator Kane Parsons. By the way, did you know he's only 20 years old? The Backrooms has now reached a much wider audience, and the movie has done pretty damn well. Even before the Backrooms was a thing, I've always been fascinated with abandoned places and seemingly impossible, dreamlike locations and aesthetics. So when the Backrooms became a thing, I was hooked. And when the movie came out, I was excited. Now, due to the nature of this video, the review will be pretty spoiler heavy, but I will still announce the Act 3 spoilers in advance. Also, as I sometimes seem to go on a tangent, I've also installed an anti-tangent alarm system to notify me when I start going too off topic. But before we get to the movie, here's a little refresher on liminal spaces. Now, as mentioned in my previous video, liminal spaces are transitional places that you don't stay there for too long, whether in a physical sense, like a hallway that takes you from point A to B, or in a metaphorical sense, it could be an emotion or mental state, and in between that you shouldn't delve in for too long. The Backrooms touches on both meanings, the physical side of things for the aesthetic, and the mental and emotional side for the feelings we get when seeing these places. And because, well, these aren't places we really want to end up in. I've seen jokes about how in classic horror we feared serial killers, and in modern horror we fear furniture. But to me, big empty spaces is not what I find scary. It's being trapped in some type of purgatory or limbo that you almost cannot escape. That is truly terrifying to me, even if it's only metaphorically. So, the movie starts off very promising, showing handycam footage of an unfortunate async employee, this universe's government agency that's probing the Backrooms. Hey, get your mind out of the gutter. And here we see him seemingly getting lost and trying to find his way out again, before meeting his demise from an entity. The handycam footage is very much like Kane Parsons' short videos. By the way, did you know he's only 20 years old? Here we are introduced to the Backrooms pretty much from the get-go, but with a lot of unanswered questions, and in a typical movie fashion, we have the intense action set piece as the introduction to the movie, before slowing down and moving on to the character introductions. This first-person perspective does show up later on in the movie, but I'm kinda glad that the entire movie didn't go full Blair Witch Project, otherwise I would've gotten motion sickness. Yeah, not sure how I survived watching Cloverfield back then. We are then introduced to Mary by first seeing a flashback scene with her mother. That isn't at first obvious that it is a flashback, but later, flashback scenes do help piece together Mary's upbringing with her mother, and how it reflects who she is today, well, today in 1990, and why she became a therapist. We're also introduced to Clark, a furniture salesman who lives in the furniture store after a messy divorce, and who always aspired to be an architect.
I am a fucking architect!
Sorry, is an architect. Who has been visiting Mary for what we, the audience, assume is a long time. I honestly think this setting is a great introduction to both characters, and gives us a glimpse as to what their characteristics are like.
The role play?
Oh, the acting thing?
Yeah.
I feel
I
stupid doing that.
know. But we have a few minutes. Let's Just try a little bit.
We then get to see Clark's furniture store that has not exactly attracted many customers and has been having issues with the power, especially with the lights randomly turning on and off. We see him filming his iconic commercial while his two employees, Bobby and Kat, help film it, as well as showcasing the period-accurate attire, which sadly is still relevant today. I know, right? Half shirts are apparently still a thing. You thought I was talking about the message on the shirt. Sadly, still a thing, only now it's in... yep, moving on. With the strange power issue happening in the store, an electrician is called to see what the problem is, and he soon finds out that not only does everything seem to be okay with the power, but strange switches have appeared that seemingly do nothing, and he blames on a dodgy installation. If it wasn't clear by this point, the Backrooms seem to interfere with the real world, in one way or another, and also sets up Clark eventually discovering the Backrooms. We later learn that Mary has a successful self-help series that Clark even listens to on tape, and there is a fun Easter egg during the party scene, where the music being played in the background is Ulterior Motives by Christopher and Philip Booth, that for many years was considered lost media, as they didn't know the name of the song nor artist. Well, it turns out the music was specifically recorded for a adult entertainment movie. So, as a nod to the mysteriousness of the song, it's either present in this movie because, in this universe, that song became super popular, or the party guests are sat around watching the pool cleaner clean the pool rooms, so to speak. Wow, Mary sure knows how to throw a party. Then, while Clark is wallowing in his self-pity, while watching TV in his showroom bed, the TV flickers to what looks like a CCTV camera, and through further investigation into the basement, we finally get the first, non-handheld footage, cinematic representation of the Backrooms, in all its yellowy, high-definition glory. I actually like that this is one of the longest, uninterrupted sequences. Clark wanders around the Backrooms for what feels like 10 whole minutes, without any cutaways or break from tension, and it does feel both mysterious and foreboding as he is exploring. It's also amazing to see that what started as one photo from a former furniture showroom, posted on the internet with a scary story, eventually became a feature film shown to the masses.
Perfect.
Also, the behind the scenes shows that a lot of the Backrooms were actually sets, where some of the actors even got lost on the sets. And I love that Kane Parsons, by the way, did you know he's only 20 years old? Focused on authenticity and every minute detail, showcasing his absolute love of the craft, and it shows. So, while I'm not the biggest expert on all the different Backrooms levels, which I understand is separate to Kane Parsons' depiction of the fandom, I do find them fascinating for a number of reasons. The main reason being, I love the sheer imagination that people have, and the stories that they can come up with by viewing a single image, and it having enough power to conjure up a story around it. The other reason is for the fact that there can be an infinite number of ideas and directions that one can go with this fandom, meaning multiple fun interpretations. But there is a caveat to it. I don't mean to sound disrespectful or anything, but sometimes it does feel like they just pick a random photo and just make stuff up on a whim. In fact, I thought I would give it a try myself. Ow. I'll use this photo I took of a lonely subway station. I'll call this the Lonely Subway Station.
How original.
It'll be, level 69.
Daring today, aren't we?
This place is very lonely, and sometimes trains will roll past, but never stop. You can try to explore more of the area, but you'll find it is just more and more of the same, almost like you're in an infinite loop. The true goal to escape is to board the one train that actually does stop, but the odds of that happening are almost 1,000,000 to 1. You can sometimes find food from vending machines, but make too much noise and you may get a visit from the ticket inspector. So, train stations are liminal spaces, but are trains themselves liminal spaces? I mean, they take you from point A to B, are transitional, and even look liminal. Can we have a train level in the next Backrooms movie? One of the criticisms I've heard regarding the Backrooms movie is that we don't see multiple levels in it, and all we see is a level 0 yellow wall. Well, first of all, this is specifically Kane Parsons' depiction of the law. By the way, did you know he's only 20 years old? Which only has the one level, and secondly, this is the first movie. I feel like showing XYZ for the sake of showing everything wouldn't work as well in the film, especially the first one, as it may feel overwhelming, and I honestly feel like the multiple level setup is more suited to a video game, offering variety in both aesthetics and even gameplay. A film adaptation has to work as a film, and the focus was always going to be on the characters, but I honestly thought the introduction to the Backrooms worked really well in the movie. I will admit though, that the fact Clark could escape by memorizing the exit did lower the stakes a little bit, but as we find out later in the movie, escaping wasn't going to be at the forefront of his mind. Another bit of criticism I've heard, especially early on in the movie's release, was that Kane Parsons, by the way, did you know he's only 20 years old? Did not actually direct the movie, and was only on there as a creative consultant or something. To clear things up, he didn't write the screenplay for the film, but he sure as hell directed it, and the behind the scenes make it even more evident. Either people assume someone from A24 directed it, or they were, I don't know, jealous that someone young made something this good. So then in the movie, after Clark goes full Charlie and explains the Backrooms to Mary, Clark sets off to find his employees to join him on his interdimensional adventure, which surely can't go wrong. We also get to see more of Mary's flashback, with her mum who has been hiding away in their home, and unfortunately is not all there. I also like how these scenes don't treat the audience like an idiot, as it may not be obvious to begin with, but the audience starts to connect the dots. I'm pretty sure she calls her Mary at one point in this scene, but I'm glad she doesn't say something like, "Mary, listen to me, your mother, in the year of 1970, or something like that. When Clark and his crew enter the Backrooms, we get some more handycam footage, which is a pure delight to fans of Kane's short videos, and also a reminder that I am double Kane's age when I start to rub my eyes and try not to get too dizzy. These scenes were awesome though, and the first-person perspective and limited view just made the tension grow even thicker. I like that it's set in 1990, and I'm a sucker for movies or shows set in the past, especially if they remind me of my childhood in one way or another. But I love that the movie told an interesting story, and the time period reflects the technology, the fashion, etc., but it doesn't have some form of heavy product placement or nostalgia bait every 2 minutes, like dangling a carrot and going, "Hey, remember Pogs?" or something like that. Looking at you, Stranger Things. Though I did like the early seasons. I'm glad it didn't have scenes like, I don't know, Clark showing up to work, listening to MC Hammer or Sinead O'Connor or something, even though he'd be listening to songs from his younger days. Kinda like how Winona Ryder's character in Stranger Things was reminiscing about being a teenager in the 60s, which is weird to me because she was a teenager in real life in the time setting Stranger Things is set. And it's, going on a tangent, moving on. I'm also glad they didn't mention the term no clipping in this, because that wouldn't be a thing for another 3 years. I'm also a fan of the commercial that is used in the movie, as it both sets up a major moment that will happen in the final act of the movie, but also pays homage to these types of low-budget commercials, especially from the 80s and 90s, and even into the noughties. We had a few iconic ones here in Australia, including this guy who I'm now convinced survived the Backrooms. Also, we can't not talk about the Flea Market Montgomery commercial that Kane Parsons, by the way, did you know he's only 20 years old? Mentioned in an interview that he was inspired by this commercial. The YouTube video is now full of Backrooms comments, and I love it. Speaking of commercials, can I interest you in subscribing to the channel? If you want more videos on reviews, discussions, and all things video games and movies, then please feel free to hit that subscribe button. So come on down and subscribe to my channel for lots of booty and lots of... come on! We got plenty of videos on those fancy video games. We even have some movie reviews and videos on
interesting topics, like the one you're watching right now.
about the Backrooms,
About furniture, about all kinds of things. SpongeBob, me boy, we don't
don't exist for an...
another 9 years.
Piece of shit!
Now, we have reached Act 3. And as mentioned before, spoiler alert for the rest of the movie. If you'd like to skip this segment, then click on this timestamp, or go to the next chapter. Here we go. Not surprisingly, the final act is my favorite in the movie, as it rises in tension and action, and has one of the best scenes in the movie. So after Mary hasn't seen Clark in ages, she decides to pay him a little visit, and we as the audience find out that a fair amount of time has passed. This is when Mary first enters the Backrooms, and we get that sense of wonder, confusion, and fear all over again with Mary, including a stellar performance by a fly. No kidding. When the fly lands on Mary's shoulder, I almost thought it was CGI because it was too perfect. But in the behind the scenes, apparently it was a real fly, so well done to the best supporting actor.
Sick reference though, bro.
When Mary reunites with Clark, she gets a very unwelcoming greeting, to put it lightly. And we then have possibly the best scene in the movie, the dinner scene. Having lost his mind, Clark forces another therapy session with Mary, only this time he takes full control, and forces Mary to roleplay as his ex-wife. And essentially he is not wanting a solution from Mary, he wants her to admit that he's right, even to the point of delusion. Here we are introduced to the still lives, which have been featured in the short videos, and are essentially copies of the real world, imperfect and incomplete, but with no actual soul in them. I also like the line about remembering things.
This place builds them. Or actually more like it remembers them. And the more times it remembers something, the less it does.
I feel like I've heard this line before. Maybe it was Backrooms related. I also liked an earlier line about trying to describe a dog to someone who's never seen one before. I feel like I've heard that saying before, but I honestly can't seem to remember from where. The Backrooms creates copies of the real world and bases them on its own interpretation. Kane Parsons, by the way, did you know he's only... fair enough. Did confirm in an interview, however, that the Backrooms doesn't specifically create things from people's memories, but rather physically from what it sees and what it portrays, which does make them imperfect and very fever dream-like. And in some cases, as you'll see soon, projects what it feels that person is like. Just before this, we got another flashback with Mary and her mother, and we see that Mary's mother was taken away to a psychiatric ward, and we see the house that they were in slowly get copied over and over in the Backrooms, until it is almost unrecognizable. Despite the Backrooms not technically having someone's mental memory, I do strongly feel like it is a projection of these memories either way. Maybe Mary's mum had dementia and was starting to forget what her house and everything looked like. It's this type of mental prison that I truly find frightening about the Backrooms. And speaking of mental prisons, when Clark is told that he doesn't have to change, he seems relieved. That is until his still life entity shows up, in the form of Captain Clark, who at first seems to embrace Clark, only to then start to devour him. Yeah, I was not expecting this. This very much reminded me of that disturbing painting, Saturn devouring his son, and here Clark is literally consumed by his hate and anger, finally taking a toll on himself. It's as if Captain Clark is a manifestation of all the negative energy that the Backrooms saw and copied from Clark. And in Clark's consumption with festering in this state of mind, it ultimately cost him his life. Yeah, never stay too long in the Backrooms, folks. From here, we get one of the most visually intense chase sequences, and I absolutely love this sequence, especially seeing the different parts of the Backrooms and the climax of the film. When Mary enters the copy of the furniture store, we see another caveman cutout, set up by Async to try and lure entities. And after an intense confrontation, Mary is seemingly rescued by Async, and later questioned. I've watched him play too many movies and games to know that it's never going to be a happy ending with government agencies and megacorporations. As Mary is being interviewed, we're not really sure if she's still in the Backrooms or back in the real world, especially as the window outside seems to have a fake sky. At the end, we see that the Backrooms continues to copy what it sees in the outside world, including the missing posters for Bobby and Kat, but sadly, none for Clark, as he had no immediate family who was looking for him. I kind of feel bad for Clark, for the most part at least, as he wasn't so terrible to begin with, but got consumed more and more with himself that he never made that change, and ultimately paid the price. Mary may not have been the best therapist, but she was not a bad person. And with the movie ending with her essentially in Async's custody, and seeing a still life of herself created, we can only guess what will happen next. I genuinely enjoyed this movie, and was honestly not expecting the monster chase at the end. Some of the criticism I heard made it sound like it really was just walking for 2 hours. I'd make a joke that some of the criticisms were from Gen Alphas with short attention spans, but overall, I thought this movie was great. I know some people expected the bacteria monster to show up, but perhaps it'll show up in a sequel, or maybe the design didn't work on the big screen. I like that it looks otherworldly, but but I feel like it could end up looking goofy if you mess it up. Also, Captain Clark looked terrifying, especially with his large size, limping wooden leg, and even the big pirate hat. It worked visually on screen, and brought to life by Robert Bobrowski. Honestly, the art direction, the acting, everything in this movie was great. I absolutely love the success of this movie, and how it has brought both fans of the Backrooms and those who just like a good scary movie together, enjoying this as a fun, psychological horror movie. I also appreciate the work and creativeness that Kane Parsons has put in, who, by the way, what's that? Small update, but he is now 21 years old. In the behind the scenes, you can tell that he is quite meticulous with his craft, making sure that the walls are the perfect shade of yellow, putting his experience with Blender to envision the environment, and making an entire floor plan of the Backrooms is nothing short of amazing. You can tell he made this for the love of the game. And speaking of, with the success of this, and obsession, and of indie or smaller budget films that seem to be, and excuse the drink talking here, yeah, I was a little tipsy while writing this part of the script, shitting all over some big budget Hollywood films, all I can say about this is, good. Good! Finally, we are getting films that are made to tell a good story, and made with the absolute love of the craft, prioritizing a great product, and not purely for maximum profit. And it's not just movies, but AAA game companies too. You want more sales on your games? Then make a good bloody game. No, I'm not finished yet. I hope the huge success of these movies and games are a wake-up call to these big companies who churn out the same tired sequels, reboots, or remakes, and then act like Surprise Pikachu when they flop. I've heard some people say that this movie is important for Gen Z especially, and honestly, I'm all for it. Newer generations need new ideas and fun, fresh new movies and games. As someone who grew up with new and fresh ideas in media, I think I speak on behalf of everyone when I say that we need new ideas to keep happening today. Also, Toy Story was perfect to end at 3. Anyway, now I'm done. You can start beeping now. Overall, I really enjoyed the Backrooms movie, both as a fan of the Backrooms and Liminal Spaces, but also as a fan of movies in general. The pacing was very good for most of the film. The world building was excellent, explaining some concepts while leaving room for interpretation, and the set pieces were fantastic, and left me on the edge of my seat. If there is a sequel, then I do hope Kane Parsons is involved, though the success of this movie does lead to some interesting activity in Hollywood. Because of this success, Hollywood now wants to find stories on the internet and turn them into movies, which, knowing Hollywood, doesn't sound super promising, as I feel like they're missing the point, and are probably going to screw it up somehow. I know there's a project that Spielberg is interested in, which might be good, but I still think they're going to butcher some of these stories somehow, even if some are only a paragraph long. I wonder if they'll adapt the Immortal Snail onto the big screen. This kind of reminds me of the success of the Barbie movie, where Mattel wanted to make more movies based on other toys, not realizing that the movie not only satirized big companies like Mattel, but directly made fun of Mattel themselves, to their face, and the success wasn't because of the toys. Anyway, before that alarm goes off again, all I will say is, if you like horror movies, or are a fan of Kane Parsons' Backrooms lore, then do yourself a favor and give this a good old watch. Now, if you excuse me, I'm going to give my local furniture store a visit, before the owner loses their mind and ends up missing. Thank you so much for watching. What are some of your favorite movie adaptations? Do you have any theories about the Backrooms? Let me know in the comments. If you like this video, please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. It really does mean a lot to me. Thank you all once again, and I will see you all next time. Okay, now this worked last time. I'm pretty sure the entrance is here. Now, I'm thinking you just gotta run in there. You know, like in Harry Potter or something, so, here goes. Oh, god damn it! Oh. Who are you? This day couldn't possibly get any worse.